Hi there guys, Gary Noden here again for GenVFX. Welcome to another lovely little 1x1 tutorial. Yes, we are back in the modifier stack, back to the way things are meant to be with me, doing one thing at a time and showing it well. I've had some lovely feedback from quite a few people saying, this is great, more information here than I've seen before, so I'm going to do it again today. It is the reason why I started this channel anyway. Because I think if you learn something well, you can keep on using it every single day. Teach a man to make a potato. He'll only ever make one potato. Teach him how to use the tools to make the potato, and he'll suddenly make a motor car in 3D. So, again, drifting. Nonetheless, here we are today, back to our one-to-ones, as I said, and today we are going to do the modifier, the Wave Deformer. I repeat, modifier, Wave Deformer. And as usual, here we are. We have our wonderful Blender window open and visible for you all to, go, oh, look, it's Blender. And you'll notice we're in the default scene, and I want to get rid of absolutely everything in here. Everything, goodbye. Goodbye. Not just the box, everything. Sorry, the box, how dare I, the default cube. And what I want to do is I'm going to add into here, I'm going to add a mesh, but it's going to be a grid. And I'm going to pop this open so I can see. I'm going to set the size to be 10 meters and the subdivisions to be 30 by 30. I think that should be enough. Let's have a little look here. If we pop in the wireframe, there we go. That's nice. I can see everything I want to do. And I'm going to add to this subdivision surface purely because I could do with some extra information in here. And then let's add on top of this the wave. There you go. Now you might notice that if I just push along here in the playback, you can see a wave rippling out from the center. And that's pretty much what wave does. It just keeps on running a wave. However, we're going to just minimize the subdivision so we can play and spend some time inside of here. This is a little thing of beauty that works automatically, but you can basically select it so it runs in an individual direction. Starting off, you might notice from the middle again. So there you go, that's running in X, just the Y, or you can set it to run in just the X. So you can have something which just runs and runs and runs, which is good. Let's just pop them both on for the motion. Or we could do, basically we turn off cyclic. Cyclic means it just keeps on going. If I just turn off cyclic and then press that button, wait for it, nothing. Why? Because it just does one at the beginning. Boop. 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 The reason why that looks like it's doing it like a radar-y thing, or a sonar-y thing, more to the point, is because I was just pressing the back button. I wasn't cycling with an offset. Not that much. However, what we can do is we can make things work a little bit more like the sonar blip by checking and messing around with some of these little bits and bobs here. At the moment, Falloff is set, as you can see, to 0. Along the normals, we might come back to that later, but we'll do that. It's on a flat surface, like a grid. Don't worry about along the normals for the time being, because it's all in the Z anyway. So let's just don't worry about that. Let's just turn this back on and turn that off. And what I'm going to do here, you can see Falloff. I say we'll leave that for a second. We've got height, which obviously sets the height, and it does go to 2. So if we look here, if we look at the side, that's 2 units. If we set that to 1, it's 1 unit, and so on. It is exactly down to your meters in this instance, because my setup is to be with meters. Let's put that back to 1. Let's make it 0.3333 just to make it look a little nicer. You've got the width, which is actually the amount of them that you have. If you reduce the width, you'll get more in your actual loop, if you see what I mean. So it's like they're tighter together, like so. And if you increase the narrowness, it just basically kind of makes them thinner, which does make sense. But it's interesting because what you're doing is you're actually going up the value. So you're changing the value to be a higher value in order to get a thinner ripple. Now that's because what you're doing is you're widening the gap inside. If you have the gap set to 0, there is no gap. If you have it set to a nice number, less than 1 meter, you'll get a sort of a bubbly sort of, I'm trying to think the best way to put it. More like, it feels more like bubble wrap. Do you know what I mean? But it's not. But it's kind of like, it just doesn't feel like water. It feels like some sort of like, maybe like a speaker possibly. But we increase that narrowness and we go all the way there. And then let's just make the width a little bit. I think that's probably about right. About 1 meter. So there's 1 meter is the actual gap between them. There you go. You've got something which is quite sort of like relatively sharp and does look quite nice in its own way. So obviously we have the typical vertex group, so I could take just a selection of the vertices here. In fact, let's do this. Just to prove a point, I'm going to go into my object mode, and let's go, and if I go to edit, so we have a flattened surface. It just means that anything that's in here can't see it until you actually click it like that. But that's just so we can see what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in edit mode, and I'm going to select one corner. Let's just select approximate. Well, that's pretty good. That's exactly what I wanted. One corner, and in the vertex groups, I shall call them corner. Let's assign those, and then deselect and reselect just to be sure. Let's go back up here to our modifiers and change that back to object mode, and in here let's change that to corner, and there you go. Now that just is only happening in that one corner like that, which is great, really lovely, especially if you just want to have something that's only happening in one corner. And then of course if we just increase our subdivisions, let's go in here and just set them both up to 3. It's a little bit smoother again. And obviously what you can do is say, if you wanted something which does this, you can stick a height map vertically basically through it. So you can have texturing it from white at the top to black at the bottom, and you've kind of got some sort of, you could actually pre-render it as like a graphic that you could use, or you could use it in some motion graphics or something like that. Setting transparency down and things like this. So you've got this lovely loopy 3D ring that can keep on going and going and going. However, I'm just going to stop my animation timeline. I'm going to get rid of that, so it's now using just every single vertex in there rather than a particular number of them. And what I want to do is, I don't want that to start at 0. I really don't want that to start at 0. I want it to start a bit further along, don't I? Yeah, that's what I want to do. So I'm going to pop open time here, and I'm going to say, well, I want it to start at, say, 60. So I'm going to bring this back to here, to the beginning. And I'm going to set my offset there to 60. Now what that offset is actually, it's the point at which your animation starts, and it's in frames. In fact, all of this stuff is in frames pretty much. Even life is in frames. It's interesting. So if I now press this and press play, nothing, we're almost at 60. There's our ripple playing through. Really nice. I'm just going to actually reduce that narrowness because it does, and just bring the height down a little bit. Actually, no, I might leave it where it is. Just so it's a little bit easier on the eye. Boom, 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 boom. That's really, really nice. But then I want it to stop. I don't want it to keep on going. I want it to stop after, say, let's say 25 frames. So if it starts, and let's set it to start at 50. And let's set the life to be 25. So what will happen is it'll now start at 50. Here we go. At 75, you'll notice 75 starts to die and diminishes there over 10 frames. That's because the damping is set to 10. So the damping is the actual fall off, I suppose. It's the, once it reaches its absolute lifespan of 25 frames, it says, right, over the next 10 frames, I'm going to damp it out. I'm just going to knock it out. Now remember, they don't cross over. So the life means that is how it will be. It will be full height for 25 frames, and then it will diminish down to flat over the damping value. So if we set the damping value there to 25, it should basically, if I click on 100, I can't see anything that's correct because it starts at 50, its lifespan is 25, and its damping is 25. So I go back here and press play, wait till we reach 50, oh, full and diminishing and gone. So that's a really good way of controlling as and when your wave starts. And then also in here, because this, I feel that the speed shouldn't be here. I don't think it should be here. I think it should be outside here. Because essentially, these are the setups for your actual wave. And I would have thought speed is more current to the wave. And then this stuff, the offset, life and damping, they should really be part of time because they're part of the diminishment and the growth and whatnot. And I think speed shouldn't be here. But just so you can see this, let's get here. If I increase the speed, it means that it's really fast. And you'll see what I mean. So if I have this, put the speed up. Whoa, bonkers. I'm going to turn that down. But if I set that say to 0.2, this should be nice and languid. Now, that's all great. All lovely. What I am going to do now is if I take my object and I scale this object up, it scales up the wave because, of course, this is an object level modifier, like they all are inside of Blender. So what I want to do is if I want to increase the size of my object, but I like the ripple, what I need to do is I go into edit mode, I select everything, and I hit scale. And that way I can get the ripple that I really want. There you go. And I can stop it from going out any further than that, really. And so if I come back to my object mode, let's just say, right, I was happy with, let's move the height up a little bit. Well, actually, I don't want to worry about lifespan because lifespan is working fine. The problem is that it's carrying on all the way to the edge and I need it to start diminishing off. I need there to be some level of fall off. And this is where we come to the fall off. Immediately, if you basically 0 in both life and fall off means infinity. That's it. If you up the value if you have that set in 0, the lifespan will just carry on regardless. It's after you put any value higher than 0 that it makes it a definitive time break. And it's the same pretty much with the distance in fall off. So if I push this up immediately away, and that's 1 meter, what happens is it just says the fall off point is at 1 meter. If I set it to 9, and remember this is 10 meters by 10 meters. If I set that to about, I'll set it to 10. In theory, that should just about reach the edge. It's just rippling the edges slightly. So let's set that to 9, and that means it shouldn't quite reach the edge. Yeah, it's just reaching it a little bit. But that feels very much to me like a ripple that you get with something like where, like, oh, I can't make the sound, but you know, sort of a little drop in the ocean, as it were, sort of like a, yeah. So that we could use that really nicely for a water ripple, say. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there you've pretty much covered most of the things you need to know. I'm going to decrease the width slightly to get us more of a ripple there. It's a little bit tighter, and let's just put those a little bit narrower, just a little bit, so they feel a bit more, so they're going underneath a bit more. And let's just drop that down a little bit, so we do feel like it's like a water ripple. That's nice. I like that. So we can play that through, and then something hits the water at 50 and diminishes. Lovely. In fact, we will do that animation very shortly because I'll put in a little object which does that water drip. But before then, I just want to quickly cover, I don't want to cover texture. In fact, no, I will cover texture. Let's do this. If we go here to where our ripple is, I'm going to go to texture here, and I'm going to add a new texture which appears down the bottom here. And I'm going to add into this a cloud. Now you can see straight away it's kind of in there, but if I increase the size, there we go, so it feels a little bit more structural. It's kind of a displaced wave, if you see what I mean. So if I make this hard and we just take this back over here, it's not like a water ripple, but it's more like a shockwavy kind of ripple, which again is not a bad thing. So for example, if you were doing well, if we go back into our object here, into its modifiers, and we turn off cyclic, see that still works, by the way, with the time fall off and everything. So you say, right, at 50 we get a, so you can use that for manipulating ground or something. So if you've got a nuclear explosion or something like that, you get a shockwave, and there you can use that to actually create the shockwave that runs through the ground as the power of the initial explosion basically shatters and pushes outwards. And again, you get that diminish as well. So that's quite useful. I always seem to forget about it. And again, you can use either based on the UVs of your object, you can use the object position, or you can use global. And global actually is better if you're moving something around, because you'll notice, let me just zoom in a bit so you can see properly. You'll notice that the texture is not moving, but the object is. It always means that if you do it globally with any of these sort of things, if you set it to global, it means if you move the object, it will basically swim through the 3D texture. Because if I set that to local, basically essentially what you're doing is you're moving the texture with the object. Global means that the texture does not move, even though the object does, and that's a really, really nice thing to have in your arsenal, as it were. Let's turn that way. So if I turn off texture, I'm just going to get rid of the texture for now. So let's just get rid of it, and let's push that back and make that cyclic again. What you can also do is this will automatically go from the center point of your object, pretty much. That's how it kind of works. I can move it left and right a bit if I want to. So it works in relation to the origin of your object. So I could say, well, let's just have that there, or I could just have it there. But it's it is animatable, but it's not very well controllable. But what you can do is I can enter this scene an empty. Let's put a plane axis in the middle there. Let's go back here, and I can set that to be that empty. So I can then move the origin of our ripple to anywhere I want on our object's surface. Now obviously it only works in the two axes, X and Y, doesn't work in Z, but that's because we are working on a flat object. Now this is essentially, this wave is a flat wave, but if we were to actually use a cube, we can actually change it to along normals, and what would happen would be if we moved it across the surface edge of an object, it would be on the double edge of the object, in theory. I have never tried this, so let's just do this very quickly, because you never know, this might work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I'll stay in edit mode, and I'm going to select all of the, let's just get my angle a bit better. Let's pick these, and let's change this so it goes around the cursor, which is at the origin, and I'm going to go RX90. That didn't work. I should have gone, maybe if I do it this way. Still not going. Why is it not doing that? That should be around the cursor. Oh. No, that's what I've done. Absolutely silly me. Put that back to global. That's the one that goes around the cursor. There we are. So now go RX90, like that. And you can probably see that's working in X and Y. I'll make it along the normals. And then if I take my empty, and if I put that there, and I move that along here, you'll see it's also passing through here. I can then change that from Z. So you are getting it on every single axis. But it is it only works pretty much in the two axes. Again, we can see if I turn off the X, you can't see a thing. If I turn off the Y, we have still got the ripple. And again, of course, it's across, wait for it. It's across the length of the object, look at that. See, it's lovely. You can simulate so many really, really clever things just by doing a few little alterations in this software. It's great. I'm going to go back though, very quickly, because you've now pretty much covered every single part of it. So let's use this in a tiny little water animation. So we actually do get something to drop plop into there, and something which you can shade up and have a nice little drip animation with. So I am going to take this object, the empty, I'm going to put that back to there, and I'm going to create a new object in the scene. I'm going to add a UV sphere, and very quickly let's go into edit mode. I'm going to pick that top point, I'm going to press O on the keyboard. That's now of course we're going not to the center point. I'm going to move this up. Oh, that's handy, we've just got enough, that's about right. Move that up to there like that. Press A to select everything, and then S, and then we're going to scale this down until it looks a bit more like a water drop. There we go. Let's very quickly go apply all transforms, and then also we're going to set the origin to the geometry so it's in the middle. I'm going to put this down here so it's kind of just in the water at that point, so it's like plop at 50, Let's make it 49, just to be pedantic. And I am going to now press N, and I'm going to key a frame of position there at 49. I'm going to bring this back to 0, and I'm going to take this up higher than you think is unnecessary. And I'm going to put a keyframe in there. And let's go to animation, and let's just select these. And I particularly want them linear, because at the minute it's kind of like a wee slowdown. Because if we take a look at this in the graph editor rather than the dope sheet, you can see that the Z location, let's just turn those to off. And we're going to press A for all, and then hit the delete or the dot button on the number pad. And you can see that that's actually an ease in, ease out, because it's the default that's set up inside the Blender. And I try to always do things with defaults because I'd rather people learn them from the defaults than having a load of settings that I've done of mine, and then you go, well, I don't know what you've just done, because it's not a real thing. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to press T to bring up the keyframe interpolation, and I'm going to click on linear, and there you go. So that's now the drip's journey will go boing through there like this, but it's not actually going below the surface. So what I will do is I will cycle this with an offset. So let's press N, and if I select this, I can go to a modifier, add a modifier, and just go cycles, and repeat motion with an offset, and then repeat motion with an offset on both the before and after modes. In fact, I don't need to do it on the before mode, but this means it will come down and it will drop through the ground like that. Keep on going. So let's go to shading very quickly, and let's just press O on the command keyboard. Yep, that's no, it's not. I got rid of the camera, didn't I? Let's add clever Gary. Let's add a camera just like that, and let's press O, and then let's go to the view, camera to view, so we can manipulate it around within the frame of our scene. Let's put that there like that. Doesn't really matter if we see an edge so much. And then if we go back to the animation and press O in here, you can see blink. And that ripple will probably be a little bit too long, so let's go back to the modifier and say, okay, I don't want it that long. I want it to, let's go down to here, back to time. I want the life to be 20, and I want the damping to be 15. There we go. So now in theory, and that's still at 50, that's fine, so it's 50, 70, 85. So I'm going to set my last frame in this to be 85. Yep. Start there, and we will just go back to the beginning, and we'll press play here. So it's like blip. And then at 50, blip. That water is now it's actually falling a lot slower than it should be. But do you know what? For the sake of argument, I'm going to leave it. Let's get a shading, and to make it nice and pretty, let's very, very quickly stick on kind of a bluish, make it sort of metallic, and let's move it across. In fact, I still don't understand why there isn't a setup which just has a timeline in here. It would just, the standard part of the setup, I think it'd be really useful if it was just a timeline, because if you are actually doing shading that's going to change over time or get a look or feel, you need to be able to quickly change to a particular keyframe. You know, it makes life a bit easier. Let's reduce the roughness, and let's kick up the specular, and let's put a bit of clear coat in there, and let's make sure the roughness on that is 0. And you know what? That looks just I just think it's too dark, doesn't it? That's the thing about PBRs. You can actually do a lot with them very easily. Let's change that saturation down, and let's make that smooth by right-clicking in the window. Yes. I'm doing that especially for my friend John, who told me off for always going to the menu, but I quite like, even though we're in object context menu when we right click, it's just, I just like going object shade smooth. It actually takes less time to do it in the window, I agree. So it's like, blop, blop. Nice. It's nice. Anyway, there's a wave for you. That's all of it, really. That's the whole thing. Again, I do hope this has been of some use to you, and you feel as though you've learned something. The point of it is that you do learn something. I learn something every day. I really do. Honestly, I really do. I learned that this model window hasn't got a timeline either. You see, for example. I mean, I know the idea is to go to layout and use that. So let's just go to layout and use that. Let's go to layout. There we go. Let's put this here. And then if I just scrub through here. And the best thing about it is, oh, I can just scrub it backwards as well. It's great. So let's pop that into there. And let's put it up. It's in object mode. That also needs to have the same shader as this. I'm going to show you another little quick trick. If I press Control L on this object, and you can see the word there, link materials, I'm going to pick this one and then pick this one and go link materials. Whoa, I've done it right. Control L, link materials, and it copies whatever's on the ladder one onto the former. How about that? How about them apples? Haha! I won't say that again. Sorry. I know it's some sort of Americanism. So here we go, wait for it, and bloom. There you go, it's lovely. Lovely, simple. Right, I'm going to leave this cycling as I sign out. Today's one by one, listen, please subscribe if you want one of these wonderful little things every single week, because you do get them every single week. I've actually done a fair few of the modifiers now. At some point, I will have to just go through all of the constraints one by one. They are pretty good. To be honest with you, I've done one or two in the past, like the path constraint and then the child constraint. I think but the two that I seem to use the most. But there's quite a bit of stuff in there that you can use, and also then we'll maybe start going into some of the dynamic stuff. And I don't just mean particles; I mean things like dynamic paint. Dynamic paint is something that I love in Blender, and I've never found a use for. I will find a use for it. I mean, actually, in a job, there's loads of things you can do with it. But it is great. It's fantastic stuff. And anyway, we'll come to that next. Take care, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm sending all my love to all of you out there. And thank you again so much. About 270 subscribers now. I still can't quite believe it my own self. Anyway, take care, guys. Speak soon. Bye.